What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Weird game in Nuggets Warriors. Jamal Murray was out, and so you got a steady dose of Reggie Jackson, which just doesn't really bring the other half of that two-man game gravity that Jamal Murray brings. So even though Draymond was out, which presented a bunch of other weird things, right? Like you got a lot of like Dario Saric minutes with Nikola Jokic on the floor, which I don't think will ever happen in a playoff series as long as the Warriors are healthy. So like obviously a weird game in terms of the matchups and some of the chess pieces that you would see in a playoff series, right? Like arguably the second or third best player for the Warriors and arguably, or for sure, the second best player on the Nuggets missing that game. But at the same time, it was a good opportunity to learn about some specific different things, right? Like down the stretch of that game, the Warriors were really spamming pick and roll. And I want to give a special shout out to JJ Redick here, and Mark Jones for doing a really nice job during the broadcast of just calling out this chess match as it was taking place. I think having JJ Redick on ESPN to do the color commentary on these games has been such a treat for basketball fans, because like he just brings so much of that basic insight to help fans understand the actual tactical things that are taking place on the floor. So shout out to JJ Redick there, but he did a really nice job of pointing out what was taking place down the stretch of this game, which was the Warriors were basically trying to pull Nikola Jokic away from the rim in pick and roll and essentially bring two on the ball to Steph Curry and then hit Kevon Looney with that pass into the pocket. And then JJ did a really nice job breaking down one of the big differences between what the Warriors do and a lot of other teams is they cut out of the weak side corner, which is just a higher percentage play. You got to have an athlete there. But think of it, to put it simply, think of it like this. A lot of times in pick and roll, you're making that kick out pass and it's a wide open corner three, right? And the Warriors still will occasionally get those corner threes. We saw those famously in the 2015 NBA Finals with Andre Iguodala getting the benefit of those off of Draymond Green passes, right? But one of the things the Warriors have done in recent years is it requires the way Steph gets guarded for this to work, because in a normal pick and roll coverage, if the guard's working downhill and the big is in more of a little bit more of a drop than a high hedge or a blitz, if he's dropping back, then the low man is the guy guarding the guy in the weak side corner. He can kind of help without having to fully abandon his matchup and still kind of keep an eye on man and ball, right? That's the difference. Whereas with Steph, because of the fact that he pulls that second defender so far away from the basket, now the roll man, in this case Kevon Looney, is catching with a clear run to the basket. And so as a result, that low man has to completely abandon that corner to step up and help. And so if you have the timing right, and as long as it's a habit from that lineup, and it's a lot of their athletes, right? It's Andrew Wiggins, it's Jonathan Kuminga, it's Gary Payton II out of that weak side corner. They will cut along the baseline, and it's just an easy drop off for a basket. So they got the Nuggets, I think, 3 or 4 times with that in the fourth quarter as they started to get going. And, you know, it kind of like, it starts slow, right? Like there was a play in the second quarter where Steph got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope caught on a screen because KCP was doing a really nice job guarding Steph for the majority of the game. But it's just a really, really difficult job to do, to stay glued to a player that's gifted moving without the basketball. Steph is incredibly gifted at setting his man up for screens because he's got such a good handle and he's always a threat to reject the screen and go the other way, right? KCP just constantly stayed attached. But towards the end of the game, the Warriors finally started to generate just tiny bits of separation. You saw in that second quarter, he finally got, I clipped this play so you can see it on my Twitter feed, but you see he finally gets KCP caught on the screen and Jokic is in more of a high drop than a blitz. And so he's up at the level, but he's still giving Steph a little bit of space. He hits him with a between the legs step back and hits a pull-up three, right? That's kind of the progression. He burns you a couple times, then you start just basically blitzing and coming way out higher above the level of the screen to try to contain that, which is then what opens up the short roll. Well, what Mike Malone did with a few minutes left to counter that, and it completely changed the dynamic of the Warriors offense down the stretch, is they moved Aaron Gordon onto Kevon Looney, which allows them to switch that Steph Looney pick and roll, right? Now, what was interesting there is that ended up leading to the next phase of the chess match, which is, okay, where do you put Jokic in this case? Well, there were several possessions down the stretch, and he ended up on Chris Paul for 2 of them, and then he ended up on Klay Thompson for another. And so then the Warriors, what was kind of cool about it from the standpoint of the Nuggets is the Warriors did what you would kind of expect, right? So they immediately just went to attacking Jokic through those other 2 matchups, right? So like Chris Paul starts trying to ISO Nikola Jokic on the right wing, and he just can't shake him free, right? Then there's Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson gets Jokic on the next possession, and he actually manages to beat him off the dribble, but Jokic kind of flattens the drive out, so he's not really going aggressively towards the basket. But I think it was Reggie Jackson out of the left side corner reaches in and just rakes down on Klay Thompson as he's driving, which gives him 2 free throws, right? But then there was another possession where Chris Paul got Nikola Jokic in pick and roll. They ended up setting a ball screen, and he missed a pull-up 3, a decent look at a pull-up 3, but he missed it. And then there was one possession where, because of the way things went in transition, Jokic did end up on Looney again. And when he was on Looney, Chris Paul ran a ball screen with Jokic and got Looney on the slip for the run to the basket. But notice whose name I didn't say in any of that little diatribe there. Steph Curry. He was basically completely removed from the offense until that transition pull-up 3 he made late that kind of gave him a chance right before it turned into a foul shooting contest. And that's the beauty of it. Like by virtue of that chess match move, by moving Aaron Gordon onto Kevon Looney, they effectively tricked or Jedi mind tricked, whatever you want to call it, the Warriors into going away from Steph. Whereas what they should have done in that case is like just bring Chris Paul back up into the ball screen if he's got Jokic on it. You run a Steph Chris Paul pick and roll, or have Steph set the ball screen on Nikola Jokic while Chris has the ball, because Jokic might not navigate the screen really well. Maybe you end up getting a switch with Steph onto Jokic, and then he can isolate there and make a play. But that's kind of the beauty of it, is like Steph was spamming this action and he was killing you. You made a smart adjustment, and it kind of Jedi mind tricked the Warriors into going away from their best player. And then down on at the other end of the floor, they got a couple of really good looks out of Jokic actions that iced the game. They ran an inverted ball screen with Reggie Jackson on the right wing, and one of the things that the Warriors will do whenever they run guard screens, meaning like guard setting the screen with Steph Curry's man, they'll do a classic hedge and recover. So they'll have Steph essentially show high on whoever it is that's the ball handler, and then as soon as whoever the ball handler's man recovers, Steph will sprint back to whoever the guard is who set the screen and play defense. Well, Jokic caught him hanging around just a second too long, and Reggie Jackson set the screen. He popped to the top of the key, and Steph stayed just a second too long on that hedge, and when he recovered, Reggie Jackson just ripped right to the basket and made a right-handed layup. And then on the final kind of post-up from Jokic on the right block, he had Looney. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope made the post entry, and on the post entry, KCP just makes a basic cut to the rim, just right off of Jokic's inside side, and Klay just on that cut is with KCP, but I don't know if it was from Steve Kerr from the standpoint of a game plan, a piece that came out of the huddle, or if it was just kind of an impromptu sort of thing from Klay. But Klay kind of like, as he was passing Jokic, it was like, maybe I'm going to help here, or maybe I'm going to double, and so he lingered just a second too long right as he was passing Jokic on that cut, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was wide open for the layup that basically iced the game. Now, late, we still got a Steph Curry left-handed layup off of a drive on KCP that he missed, and obviously we had the jump ball and the Klay Thompson kind of fumbled bad bounce pass from Chris Paul, but a lot of that was because of missed free throws. Like Nikola Jokic just inexplicably missed 2 free throws. That never happens. I think Reggie Jackson missed one as well. So like they missed 3 free throws at the game that gave the Warriors some late chances that otherwise they would not have had. But it was an interesting kind of little chess match there. And I think like in general, you know, I just lived through this chess match as a fan. I mean, obviously I covered all the series last year, but as a fan rooting for a team, I was rooting for the Lakers in that Lakers-Warriors series last year, and I lived through all of this. I lived through the experience of trying to navigate how difficult it is to guard Steph Curry in pick and roll. And one of the things they did in the one of the things they did in the Lakers series, which was smart, was they just kept bringing Anthony Davis's man up into the ball screen regardless of who he was guarding. So if it ended up being Gary Payton, they just bring Gary Payton up into the screen, right? Like whoever it was, they brought them up. And so that's the thing that the Warriors didn't do in this one game regular season sample size, but that's the thing that would be the inevitable adjustment, right? As you just start bringing Jokic up into the ball screen regardless of whether he's guarding Chris Paul or he's guarding Kevon Looney, right? But that said, like I thought, like in a lot of ways, it demonstrated the types of advantages that Denver's going to have regardless. Like the transition pushes, I think they're the best at this in the league. Just whenever they have an opportunity, it's funny because they're not a particularly fast team. Like I'd say Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is an elite straight line athlete, and Aaron Gordon is an elite straight line athlete. But Michael Porter Jr., Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, these are average to below average athletes, right? They have great size. Like Jamal Murray's huge and strong for a guard. Michael Porter Jr. is tall, has long arms, and can move well. Michael's actually moving really well right now, but he's not as athletic as your typical wings that we have in the league, right? And then Jokic is a big body that's, theoretically not a top tier linear athlete. Their bench is super athletic. Like the Nuggets bench has all sorts of straight line athletes, but like somehow the Nuggets still kill everybody in transition. And to me, it's a habit thing. They just have really good habits of identifying when there are opportunities to push the pace. It's almost like they identify whenever Aaron Gordon's man or Nikola Jokic's man like misses a layup or crashes the offensive glass on their end of the floor, they will identify that and sprint. And then they get these quick mismatches in transition, and it's a bucket damn near every time. They got Aaron Gordon on Steph Curry, switched a bunch of times in this game. Jokic has been killing people all season long with that type of transition push. That I think is super it's funny, we talk about, half-court offense, and half-court offense in and of itself is the bread and butter of what determines the outcomes of playoff series. But it isn't the entire thing. Like, let's just throw an arbitrary number. Like, let's pretend that half-court offense piece is 70% of it. What's the other 30%? The other 30% of it is everything on the margins. So, like being a good transition defense, being a good transition offense, being good on the glass on both ends of the floor. Execution out of timeouts, execution at the end of games, like your defensive versatility, your ability to switch up schemes depending on what's going on. Like it's a huge advantage that Aaron Gordon is both strong enough to hang with an opposing post player, but quick enough to hang on the perimeter in a switch against someone like Steph Curry credibly, right? Like obviously he's not going to lock up Steph Curry, but he can do as well on Steph Curry as what you'd expect from other perimeter defenders, right? That sort of versatility is a huge advantage there. So they have defensive versatility. They are a great transition offense. They're elite on the glass on both ends of the floor. And all that does is make it so that it's not just, you have to beat the Nuggets in the half court. You've got to beat them everywhere in every facet of the game because they're good everywhere. And that just kind of increases their margin for error. It makes it so that they can be without Jamal Murray and win games against elite teams, right? Jokic kind of has this ability. I talked about it yesterday on our show, but like Nikola Jokic going into last night's game was shooting damn near 90% on floaters and push shots. And he struggled a little bit with Looney in the first part of this game, but then I thought he kind of figured him out towards the end. The accuracy he has on those shots, the shot making ability that he has, puts him in a position where when Jamal Murray's out, he can just push up his usage and then make things happen like that. So I think he missed 11 shots last night, and that's uncharacteristic for Jokic, but because he's so damn efficient, he was still 14 for 25 or whatever it is that he was, and he still got generated more than enough offense to win the game. This team just has a massive margin for error, and they're getting solid production out of specific key role players off the bench. That's kind of maintaining that kind of flexibility as they navigate the ebbs and flows of the regular season. They're just in a really good spot. And Michael Porter Jr. is the last guy I wanted to shout out. He has been so good in so many ways, especially over the course of the last 2 weeks. He's making such better help and recover decisions defensively. He's leveraging his length and athleticism. Again, like, I don't think he moves as well as some of the other wings in the league, but when you combine how well he moves with him being 6'10" with super long arms, he can still be really impactful. He had another tip dunk last night off of an Aaron Gordon post-up. He caught Chris Paul not paying attention in help side, and that was his 8th offensive rebound putback of the season so far. He has the 10th most offensive rebound putbacks in the entire NBA. Like, that's how active Michael Porter Jr. has been on the offensive glass. And now his shot's starting to come around. He was 31% from 3 in 6 attempts in his first 5 games of the season. And now he's up to 44% on 8 attempts in his last 4 games. So that's a really good sign. Jamal Murray apparently is going to be out the rest of the month with his hamstring injury. So it'll be all that concept that I'm talking about in terms of malleability, variety, and margin for error is going to be put to the test in a big way over the course of the rest of this month, and especially as it pertains to the play-in tournament. But that's the thing. Like, if Denver ends up, running off a bunch of games without Jamal Murray, to me, that's a pretty strong indicator that this team is on track to be in a really good spot to repeat. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub. And with DraftKings parlays, everyone's got a shot at an even bigger basketball win. String together multiple bets from the same game or build your parlay across multiple games for a shot at making your payday even sweeter. Basketball's more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code HOOPS. The crown is yours.
Don't miss the action this weekend when the NFL heads to Germany for the Frankfurt games. These games will air on the NFL Network. I'll be watching and stream on NFL Plus. Again, streaming on NFL Plus. For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix Plus, NFL Plus for just $25 a month with Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions you already have, like NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to games on mobile, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, which means you can catch the Frankfurt games and more. Just go to Verizon.com/thevolume to bundle and save before the game. Hurry, this offer ends soon. Again, that's Verizon.com/thevolume.
Golden State, couple of specific things I wanted to hit. Jonathan Kuminga hit another left shoulder fadeaway in the post. He's up to 25 points on 21 post-ups this year, including passes. That's 1.19 points per possession. He's now tied with LeBron and Tobias Harris for the 21st most post points in the NBA. So, like, he's become like a legitimate matchup attacking wing for them. I was talking with Adam Morris about this a little bit this morning, because he thinks that it's a little bit more hot and cold, and I agree. There's a lot of bad with Kuminga in the post, like turnovers, forcing extremely difficult shots against smaller defenders when he could be going more aggressively to the rim. But he's making enough shots and he's getting to the foul line and it's producing the points. And so at the end of the day, like, young guys, you expect highs and lows. You expect highlights and you expect mistakes. Whereas, like, as players get better, there's fewer highlights, but there's more consistent, boring success, and then there's way fewer mistakes, right? So, like, obviously, like, the young player experience kind of comes with that sort of thing. But in general, I find that to be an encouraging early season trend that Kuminga's been so good attacking matchups in the post. And then don't forget, in the long term, like, this dude's going to have another 70 plus games or reps like this. So it's very possible that he ties off a lot of the mistake making tendencies as he moves along. Again, another game that came down to a late game pick and roll chess match, like we talked about earlier. One of the things that like kind of stood out to me is, like, you had CP3 with really favorable matchups as Jokic moved over to him, and he couldn't produce a bucket, aside from the one time that Jokic was back on Looney when he could run his traditional pick and roll. And, like, that's one of the things is, like, like Chris is going to have to be able to occasionally pitch in with a bucket against a switch, particularly against the center when things kind of go that way. And there's been a handful of games this year when Chris has had some scoring pop, but for the most part, he's really struggled to put the ball in the basket. And so that's something just to keep an eye on over the course of the rest of the season. But overall, a really encouraging effort. Again, Draymond's out. It's going to be totally different if Jamal Murray's in there too, because like you're going to slide Andrew Wiggins onto Jamal Murray in all likelihood. With Draymond in the lineup, you can do a lot more. You have a little bit more flexibility with the way you guard Jokic. Like Jokic was really targeting Saric in this game. There's a play where he ran an inverted pick and roll where Saric was on Gordon, and he ran like a ball screen where he was the ball handler with Gordon at 10 feet away from the basket, got the switch onto Saric, then Gordon cleared out and took Looney with him, and then he just kind of hit Saric with a basic drop step and put it in the basket. Like every time Jokic saw Saric, he saw food and his eyes lit up and he got an easy basket. So like, are we going to see Saric on the floor with Jokic at the same time at all during a playoff series? Probably not. It's probably going to be a steady diet of Draymond and Looney with Saric against their bench units, running pick and pops with Chris Paul, right? So like, don't want to take too much away from this matchup, but I did think it was an encouraging effort. Not many teams have gone into, I talked about this earlier, but that's the 8th win for the Nuggets, and I want to say that's just the 3rd win of those 8 that required a clutch situation, meaning the score was within 5 with less than 5 minutes left. So like, they've been pretty much dominating people. And so for you to go into Denver and make a game of it and have a left-handed layup from Steph that could have tied the game late, even with the missed free throws, that is a really encouraging outcome. I also thought it was, again, Looney is not a Jokic stopper. I think that's overstated. I do think you can get away with more single coverage stuff with Looney than you normally would in a playoff series, and that's an advantage. Again, like that's the thing. Like if you can get, when it comes to superstars, you're not trying to stop them, especially the best players in the league. You're not trying to stop them. You're just trying to make the game harder for them. And I think Looney is capable of at least making Jokic work harder. And it's a really interesting idea of like the matchup archetypes, because like I think Anthony Davis is the best and most versatile defender in the NBA. And like there's a couple other guys that are on that list, on that tier, right? Like guys like Bam Adebayo, guys like Rudy Gobert, guys like Giannis. But like the problem is like most of those guys are too skinny to really hang with Jokic in his back down situations. So it's interesting to me that you see guys like Joel Embiid, like Karl Towns, even like Kevon Looney, like for lack of a better word, like the kind of chunkier, and I mean, again, like they're professional athletes, that's not what I mean, but I just mean relative to the lean, kind of like skinnier looking athlete versus more of the chunkier, kind of like low center of gravity, heavy weight bigs, they tend to hold up better against Jokic because he's a back down player. And if you can hold your ground, you can force him into tougher shots. And again, like that's not the same as saying Jokic stopper. It just is an example of a type of player that can make Jokic work harder. And the Warriors have one of those guys. And I think that is a legitimate point of optimism. And again, your offense had some real success against the Nugget defense in the fourth quarter up until that final adjustment with the Aaron Gordon switch, which the Warriors in a regular season setting were unable to kind of keep up with.